What's up, people? This is Chef Jeff, and you are listening to the sounds of Smooth 98.1.
Love music.
The Smooth Breakfast presents the headlines, the stories, the news, in-depth analysis of national current affairs.
Studio!
Freshly pressed.
Good morning to you, Lagos. Welcome to Smooth Breakfast. You're still listening to Smooth Breakfast with Rotus and myself. My name is Valentine. Today on Smooth Breakfast, at this time, we usually go into detailed analysis of the news in, of course, on the national dailies. It's called Freshly Pressed. Use the hashtag FreshlyPressed981 if you're on Twitter. You should be following us, though. It's at Smooth91FM. So you
We're
catch
streaming.
up on the latest. Yeah.
We're streaming
On
live.
YouTube.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
I'm
so-
gonna throw the pen at the camera.
So search. No, you're not going to do that.
No, I'm not gonna do that.
So
I'm not
you
gonna
should
do
search Smooth 91 FM Lagos on YouTube so you can subscribe and follow us with all the details. Guest joining us, Ugo Dre. Ugo Dre, good morning.
Morning, sir. Good morning, Lagos.
Good morning to you. And Funmi, good morning.
Good morning, Valentine.
I haven't seen you since the holidays.
Oh, yes, happy Easter.
So to you, in arrears. And we'll start with details. Lagos, by the way, the WhatsApp number is tweeted on our handle, so you can follow and interact with us as well. You're sending your comments with the hashtag FreshlyPress91 on Twitter. You can also comment on our YouTube handle. And then the first story is coming from The Punch. Ugo Dre, I'll come to you with this one. It's talking about the cholera outbreak it doesn't seem to be abating yet. Now, the latest attack has hit Yobe State in Gashua, precisely, has claimed 13 lives out of 160 cases reported in the last 6 days, according to reports from the news agency of Nigeria. Now, it's said to have, the victims that were affected were brought in from Sabongari, Katuzu, Zongo, Lawan Musa, and Salikin Hausawa. What's your take on this? And is the governments in question in the states that are affected in the towns, are they doing enough to curtail this? Because we've heard of cases where some medical personnel say they don't have even hazmat suits, to administer treatment.
Okay, I'm actually going to look at this from the point of view of prevention. This is not the first time that we've seen cholera outbreaks in Nigeria. I think we had, a spate of outbreaks last year. I think there were some in Kwara, Borno, and especially some of the states in the northern region of the country. And it was similar response. Our response to things like this have always been very tepid. I don't know how we're able to actually kick out Ebola in this country. It's still a mystery, and it's so difficult for us to kick out cholera, which is not the kind of disease that you find in most advanced countries, or at least in most serious countries in the world. And looking at this story, if you read a bit deeper, they tell you that from what they've discovered, a lot of the cholera outbreak actually stemmed from boreholes that have been dug privately by residents within the state. So apparently, a lot of the guys who dug those boreholes did not comply with regulatory requirements or some of the requirements that you need, preventive requirements that you need to dig boreholes, and this has actually been attributed to the main cause of the cholera outbreak. So you probably have people digging boreholes beside canals or boreholes beside where sewage pathways and what have you. And this is basically a case of a dysfunctional maybe local government, state government, health authorities, people who can't just impose simple regulatory requirements. How do people just end up digging boreholes without getting plan approvals or state approvals, what have you? And of course, it's about time you have a state government that can provide ordinary water for people to drink. And because you can provide ordinary clean water for people to drink, that is why people resort to providing water themselves and those boreholes. So it's In terms of prevention, we have a problem, and then in terms of actually treating these cases, it's also a problem too. So you probably have to wait till you have dozens of deaths and other statistics in the bag before you start to see governments take these things seriously. Sometimes you wonder if there's actually people making money out of things like this, because things like this actually do persist when people seem to make some kind of money. From I might sound a bit cynical, but in Nigeria, I mean, some of these things are.
You never
I
know,
just
yeah.
look at it and I'm like, why do things like this just happen?
Why
all
do
the
they
time?
happen?
Yeah, because I don't
why
think-
always
so
reactive?
either there's probably people benefiting from this kind of outbreaks, or it's just that we're just purely incompetent.
Anyway, needless to there's need to add that the governor in the state is actually providing, including the Senate leader Dr. Aman Lawan, is providing fluids and aqua tablets really to help purify the water. We'll see how far that will go, and just our hearts go out to the families who've lost loved ones.
Yeah.
So
And we hope that this doesn't come up again in other states.
exactly.
Down.
Hope it's curbed. Anyway, so the next story is same from the Punch as well. It's an update on the developing story that we reached us yesterday. So precisely March 31st, just right where people were getting to the frenzy of Easter, there are concerts all across the country, but a particular one came into question, really bringing to light the same menace or terrible situation surrounding musical concerts in Nigeria that's happened in the East for quite a while, but people talk about it less. Now, this one precisely had Flavour as a headliner. The Enugu State Police Command is reacting to allegations of rape. They said not less than 10 girls were molested and raped at the concert in the presence of bodyguards and security personnel. The governor of the state was right there at the Michael Okpara Square, and they were not aware of what was going on. Now the police is asking for victims to come forward and present themselves. Policemen and bouncers were available. What is going on for me?
Well, the police command is saying that no one has reported any rape case and that victims should come forward. I'm wondering after how many days, what kind of evidence do you intend to get? But first and foremost, I think we should start from the fact that the issue of rape and sexual harassment is so serious that when we talk about it or when we allege it, we should do so under very serious circumstances. And if we continue to throw it out on social media with nothing happening, it begins to whittle down the seriousness of what it is that we're talking about. Now, I'm not saying that these things didn't happen, but I think we need to come to a place where we begin to set out policies and begin to educate people on what they need to do if it occurs or any form of sexual harassment occurs. That is the way to actually deal with it. I don't think there's any cohesive well, apart from that released by the Miracle Center in Lagos, but I don't think there's any cohesive policy out there on what a victim should do, what you need to do, what even doctors need to do to be able to preserve what is needed to prove. It has to go beyond I said, she said.
Yes.
To actually prove the case in court, it can't be just, oh, I said he did it, he said he didn't do it. So we need a cohesive policy on what rape victims, and to educate, begin to push it out there, what rape victims need to do immediately after the incident, what doctors need to do when victims walk into their hospitals, their health centers, alleging the incident.
Yes, but looking at the concerts themselves, it's not news that some guys, several times, not just the guys anyway, but I'm saying people generally use it as an opportunity to actually just go wild.
Yes, there's always this thing out
and it was
there.
a free concert. There was no payment made. So imagine having that kind of concert in Enugu. Sorry, this is not the first time we're hearing about this.
I won't say riffraffs, but where everybody.
Yeah, come in. The Pheno's concert, there was Pheno Fest earlier this year, I think sometime last year as well.
Yeah.
The same thing happened. The same reports that we're hearing now is happening. When I saw the story, I thought to myself, is it that nobody has done this? I've done something about this to curtail this incident?
Yeah, that's why it's happening again. Because the first time, I'm not sure there was a single arrest.
There was no arrest, but
the
Pheno's management came forward and apologized to the public and said there was no way they could, check this menace. it's happening again. It's happened. Flavour was the headliner. This whole thing, people were of the speculation that it was Flavour's concert, but I dug deeper and found out it was actually the state government that organized it.
You know what? Even if this concert was 1,000 naira or 500 naira, I want to believe you still have this kind of cases come up.
Yeah. And
this boils down to one fact. I think that there's probably a rape culture. I mean, forgive me, but I think there's a rape culture somewhere within Enugu State, within certain clusters in Enugu State. So there are some guys somewhere there. There's probably a group around these areas who believe that this is some kind of fun, right? And if we don't start to address that rape culture and that issue, then you'd always have these things happen. And when you have a mixture of culture of people who love to rape, guys who just like to gang rape women, women who
filling
also
them
are
up.
very shy or coy to come out and report things like that, then it only persists. It would always happen. Do you understand? So that's what the state government, and that's what we need to address first. So I think the police is going about this the wrong way, right? If you're waiting for people to come out to come and complain,
no
it
victim
takes a lot.
will
Yeah,
come
it's
out.
going to take a whole lot for a victim to come out. Exactly.
Then.
Especially when you look at the way
The
people perceive
victimization.
maybe women and things around there.
Because
right?
there was a-
so it's going to be difficult.
yeah, when
so you got to address those who go out to rape.
Exactly. When
Those
it
are
came
the
out,
guys,
people were
they're a group
saying,
of guys.
the usual very
Oh, were
annoying
you doing it in
statement.
the first
Why were you
place?
dressed that way?
Exactly.
Are you supposed to wear a gown
these things.
or full?
I'm not even bothered about that because you always have useless people who come out and say things like that. But there are probably a group of guys, they're bandits, who do this all the time. So it's something that they look forward to, right? So and they get away with it all the time. So these are the kind of guys you have to look for. Set traps for those guys. Go out and get them. By the time you make one or two scapegoats of people, then these things will stop. You have to address the root cause of these things and not the symptoms.
And people really need to pay attention to when things like this are happening. We find that most people are apathetic to these incidences where you see it happening in front of you. It takes away from the humanity in you, really, when you see such incidents and then you just look away. It's terrible. Anyway, move on very quickly to Vanguard. Keep your messages coming in. We've tweeted the number for WhatsApp as well here on Smooth 981 FM. An update on the CBN meeting. We had the MPC meeting was meant to hold earlier this week. It's actually happened on Wednesday. Now, the Central Bank of Nigeria retained the monetary policy rate at 14%. Fully. Ugo Dre, let's go into this.
Okay, so this is actually no news. MPC to meet. I think they haven't met since is it December, if I'm not mistaken.
Well,
Yeah. The quorum issue. Yeah.
So finally they've been appointed, and for some reason I think a lot of people expected the MPC to take maybe the decision, or just it was as if we were saying, Kukuma increase it. Like you guys meet every other time and the same thing, 14%, 30% and all that. So nothing really has changed. But here's the issue though. I didn't expect a change. So for the government, 14% has always been, to them, they feel that's a benchmark monetary policy rate. And for those who don't understand what this, 14% is the rate at which the CBN lends money to banks, and so it's usually the baseline for lending rates. So banks will typically lend, say MPR plus say 5%.
Okay.
So if it's 14%, banks will say 14% plus 5% or plus 6%. So your borrowing rate is now 20%. So if the MPC rate is reduced to say 13%, then likely your interest rate on your car loan or your mortgage or whatever personal loan will reduce. If they reduce MPC,
if they reduce it, okay.
So it'll reduce. So that's how. That's why the MPC rate is the MPR is actually closely followed or watched by a lot of people, because that really determines how government borrowing also oscillates. So, but then to reduce MPR, you also need to look at the inflation rate. So currently, inflation rate I think just dropped below 15%. So the fact that you can't have your monetary policy rate higher than the lower than higher than the inflation rate.
Yeah.
So it has to be slightly higher than inflation rate. So for us to get to MPR rate that is say single digits or much lower, then inflation rate needs to trend further down. But the irony of this all is that the MPR rates and things like this actually don't really determine inflation.
It's
if
dollar.
You want inflation to go up in this
Dollar.
dollar. Things like fuel price increase, electricity price increase, tariff increase rather. So these are the kind of things that affect inflation rate. So if the CBN likes, push NPR to 9%.
But do they have a
9%
strong
NPR.
influence on the economy of the nation?
That's what I'm saying. So it's only around lending, and even at that, banks don't even stick to it. I could remember there was a time NPR was 9% in the Sanusi era. We've seen 9%, we've seen 8% single-digit NPR.
Did that
rates
make
in this
any
country.
difference?
Not much. Yes, lending rates were slightly lower. At least lending rates were around 18-19%. But then, there's just a very minute sector of the economy that are the ones actually borrowing all this money. So you really feel that effect. Do you understand? So it doesn't really pull down or control inflation to a large extent. But then the NPR rate is one important rate in the country, a metric in the country. So.
Valentine, you see, this is what we're talking about, right? This is back to
the rape issue.
The rape issue. We have a message here. I'm not even going to give out the Twitter handle, but he says there is a need for you guys to also talk on indecent dressing. It will help to curb it.
How about you curb?
Can you see that?
How about people? I wouldn't say you, so it don't seem like me personal. But how about people learn to curb their animalism or whatever it is? Barbarism. Like, yeah, there's a thing of indecent dressing, but who made you the judge? First of all, I don't want to go into
No, wait. No, please.
If you look at the statistics, you actually find that a lot of rape victims were probably covered from head to toe.
Exactly. I don't even say that. I mean, like, if you put a rape victim in a street bar where you have scantily dressed women as part of, being in the street bar, what are you going to do? Are you going to jump at them?
Thank you.
You're going to rape them?
That is an excellent analogy,
Really?
Ugo Dre. What about exotic? I mean, it doesn't make so. Please, pumping. You have to. It has nothing to do with indecent dressing. You're not an animal, okay? So that's the thing. You have to control yourself. It doesn't have anything to do with that. Anyway, are we still? Ugo, I don't want to turn this into Business Express, but anyway, should we? Let's let it go. Let's move on to the next story. Yeah, you've explained it pretty well. Let's move on from
message here from
MPC.
MI in WhatsApp. MI from Akoka says, "God rest the dead." Like my friend will say, there is cheap death. Sometimes as preventable as cholera is still taking lives. As preventable as it is, you meant to say. I wondered too how successfully we actually fought Ebola. We can do better things than this at this local government level. Now, no name here, but we can't take that. Sai says, good morning, guys. All right, thank you very much. The solution, that's from Sunday, solution to the rape issues at concert is simply to provide adequate security. It cannot be isolated as something tied to a group of gangs, specifically in Enugu, etc. It's used to, and it still happens in Lagos as well. The possibility exists whenever such a large gathering occurs without adequate security. Is also encouraged by the lucid nature of the shows. Big E from K2 sends this one. It says, if they're going to do a free show, there should be presence of heavy security.
And also as a safety issue for young girls going out to concerts, go in groups, go in large groups, and that it's more you're more protected that way if you're in groups.
Yeah, but it doesn't stop them.
It doesn't stop them, true, but it's best to go in groups. All right.
So the next story is from the Punch. Buhari okays $1 billion equipment for military. Now this has raised a lot of uproar.
Wow.
The president Muhammad Buhari has approved purchase of equipment worth $1 billion for the military. Minister of Defense Mansur Ali stated this in an interview that he granted at the State House to correspondents at the end of a meeting with Buhari he had at the presidential villa just yesterday. And he said, among other things, the National Economic Council, chaired by Vice President in December of 2017, if you remember, he approved the withdrawal of $1 billion from excess-crude accounts to fight insecurity. Remind you that the government of Nigeria said a Boko Haram war has been won. Now they're pumping out more money. This is not 1 billion naira, $1 billion. Groups like Bring Back Our Girls group, the BDOG group, the Fire Shea, Ekiti State Governor has come out to say that the approval of $1 billion for the procurement of security equipment is questionable. They should really explain how they've used the money that has been allotted to fight the security challenges in the north since 2011. I feel like it's come to a time where Nigerians really need to call government. The question is actually happening already, but they need to be accountable. If you give somebody money and say, oh, okay, so you want to use this for maybe A and B, you've done well. How have you used it? And then you can be comfortable or confident enough to give them more. Now the government is approving this amount. For what reason?
To fight insecurity.
I mean, like straight up answer.
Well, it sort of feels like 2015 replaying,
Yeah.
especially when you consider the criminal charges regarding the designing looted funds and Dasuki.
And that's okay.
And you realize that these were exactly the same excuses in which the funds were siphoned and handed out.
It feels like
states
deja vu.
Exactly.
Yeah, it does.
And I know. And when you look at the comments by the various organizations, you realize that they are all around the same. Number one, you said you have fought Boko Haram. You have successfully fought Boko Haram. What are we needing this amount of money for? And then you say, especially when you consider the fact that the allegations of a ceasefire agreement with Boko Haram, and then you're wondering, okay, so what is this money for? One lone voice out of the very disapproving voices, a security analyst, Mr. Ben Okezie, has actually said there's no amount of money that is too much to spend on security. And the security cost will plummet when you consider the value of our currency. Yes, in reality, there really is no amount of money too big to spend on security. But what we have in Nigeria is a trust issue. I think it was the president of the Bring Back Our Girls movement that said, since 2011, we spent almost this much so far on tackling insecurity, and we're at this stage. So if we're spending another batch of this money, we have to follow the trend. But annoyingly, Fayose made a very, very valid point.
Yes.
Which is that if this money is coming from the excess good account, what authority does the president alone have to
approve such a huge amount
without the National Assembly, without the other federating units, the state and local?
Was it not just yesterday that we're mentioning that the executive secretary of NHIS released diverted
he invested
he said he invested 25 billion naira into
federal government bonds
company.
Yes. No, not into a private. No, it wasn't a private company. Cavalry Asset Management is the company that handled the investment. But still, it was wrong.
Supposed to go into the
TSA. Yes. That's correct.
And then when you consider the fact that they didn't make this move early on in the administration, they're making this move so close to the elections.
It caused a lot of questions.
Yes.
Fulu Storms, we miss you.
Hey.
She sends in a message here on YouTube. She says,
"Hi, Fulu.
Excuse you, indecent dressing care. Good morning, guys. I'm confused as to why approval of such funds is to fight security is a problem. When we see kidnapping and Dapchi etc. continuing, securing a nation is round the clock. Keeping the peace is expensive, and we keep asking why we cannot secure our nation in multiple fronts, as insecurity on multiple fronts. So I'm sure it consumes money." She continues, "Commander-in-Chief, he has full authority when it comes to securing the sovereignty of our nation. People are asking U.S. troops to come set up base in Nigeria." Victor
kind of agrees with Fayose. Fayose did say the money was for next year. Yeah. So Victor here on WhatsApp, he says, "I think the $1 billion for security is actually for 2019. Victor.
Suspicions.
Yes.
It's actually just the mistrust people have.
Yeah.
I don't think they have a problem with us spending money on insecurity.
Right. Well,
accountability.
Well, okay, yes, indeed. All right, so moving on now to Facebook. More facts emerge on how Cambridge Analytical used violent videos before Nigeria's election. Cambridge Analytica sought to influence the Nigerian presidential election in 2015 by using graphic, violent imagery to portray a candidate as a supporter of Sharia law who would brutally suppress dissenters and negotiate with militant Islamists, a video passed to British MPs has revealed. People, what do you think about this? Were you guys influenced by these videos? Did they move your votes?
You see, there's something I always tell people.
Yeah.
It's like you gotta be careful with the kind of things that are being shared on social media.
Right.
And I've actually exited a lot of groups because of, especially on WhatsApp.
Yeah.
So people see videos, sometimes probably videos of accidents that happen somewhere in one expressway, and then people share it as some kind of violent military or extrajudicial killings on the military and stuff like that. So you got to be very careful. And people who peddle these things have an agenda. And I think that you also become culpable emotionally one way or the other if you start to forward these things without verifying where it comes from. This is just a fact. What has happened now with Cambridge Analytical is a fact. It just shows you that these things don't just happen by design. People actually send these things out.
Right.
These things happen by design, rather. People deliberately send these kind of videos out. So you got to be very careful with the kind of videos you receive and what you broadcast. especially on WhatsApp.
Be responsible with your sharing.
Right.
Yesterday, I was looking through a video, and some tech experts actually exposed how easy it is to create a fake news website.
It's very
in
easy.
less than an hour.
Yeah.
Using Facebook.
Yeah.
And
then with the sponsored ads, you can actually push the story to a target audience, and they'll swallow it and spread it as well.
You gotta be very careful.
All right, Ugo Dre, help us out with this here. Nigeria to start electricity trading within West African region in June. Nigeria and its other West African neighboring countries will begin formal trading in electricity generated within the region from June this year. The chairman of the West African Power Pool, WAP, managing director of the Transmission Company of Nigeria, Mr. Usman Mohammed, have disclosed. Mr. Mohammed explained this in Abuja. This is under the electricity trading agreements will be done under WAP and ECOWAS Regional Electricity Regulatory Authority, ERARA. There's so many acronyms I can't keep up.
That's just
So
like WAP.
yeah, so WAP sounds nice.
Sounds like it's so.
Ugo, what's up with the trading? How's
Anyway,
this gonna work?
I read this, and I think what's going on is that so currently we have from the people in the sector will tell you have stranded power in Nigeria. And stranded power basically is that we currently generate, I think, or we have an installed capacity of about 8,000 or so megawatts, 78,000 megawatts of electricity in Nigeria. And currently we're only able to evacuate maybe about 5,000 megawatts or so, and maybe after that 5,000, maybe 4,000 gets to the grid. So the question then becomes, what happens to the remaining 3,000 or thereabouts megawatts that nobody's consuming, which is what they call stranded power. So deals like this enable generating companies to actually push power outside the country. So there's no need just keeping that power in here. You can pull it out, and then
we don't have enough.
That's what I'm saying. So we actually, that's what people don't realize.
Yeah,
we have 8,000 installed capacity here,
right? And
we only use 5,000.
So what do you do?
We have transmission capacity
problems.
Right, so you have to really understand how that value chain flows.
Right.
So if you have transmission capacity problem, like I only do 5,000. What do you do? So the guy who generates 3,000, is it just going to keep it there?
Right.
You have to move it out as well
somewhere else.
Yeah, have a market out there that you can move that power to. But here's the problem, really. The problem really is that even for a lot of those generating companies, they still face the same risk that the generating companies in Nigeria face, and that's the distribution risk. People don't actually pay bills because of metering, and you don't have that problem alone in Nigeria. You also have it across West African region.
Yeah.
So they might not get their money back. That's probably what they need to deal with. But please, this is just all about stranded power. It's not really about we don't have enough power here now.
Okay. All right. From the Punch now. Lagos seals firm over emissions. Residents of Jericho Police Barracks and the also community in Ijora, Badia area of Lagos State have expressed happiness over the sealing up of an asphalt producing company in the neighborhood, which is ironically called Righteous Construction Company Nigeria Limited. They're righteous, but unfortunately they're polluting the area. Funmi, what were your thoughts on this being closed?
So this is good, better late than never.
Right.
But one problem we always have in Lagos State is when we look at our so-called master plan, how do these companies get sited in residential areas?
Yeah.
Especially with an asphalt production company.
Yeah.
Who would likely produce this kind of emissions? And then when you don't have the regulatory agencies doing constant checkups to ensure that those emissions are dealt with properly, this is what you have. But better late than never.
Yeah.
The fact that the damage is stopped, whatever damage has been caused so far, that's another step. That's another thing that is very lacking in Nigeria. Responsibility for what has been done so far. I mean, we hear of big tort cases in United States, United Kingdom, where companies are held responsible for this kind of actions.
But also ministries in the government, the Ministry of Environment, there should be environmental impact assessment before approval is given to these companies to set up sites. Questions should be asked, really. We should stop being reactive. Really.
We should stop being reactive. And once we give the approval, they ought to be constant checkup. Yes, I can set everything right when I'm about to start, knowing that the government officials are coming to check. In 5 years' time, 10 years' time, things get more expensive to do things the right way. I begin to cut corners because I know nobody's coming back to check. So there should also be constant checkup.
All right.
Good stuff. All right. So last story, yes, from the Punch. Oyegun, governors back Buhari, APC to meet on fresh congresses. What do you guys think? The national leadership of the APC has called for an emergency meeting of the party's National Executive Committee to discuss the dates for fresh Congress congresses of the party. So
well, the party is claiming there's no crisis. But when you look at the story and you look at the fact that the chairman of the party is saying, yes, we're going to need to consider whether the tenure elongation will continue or not, to consider the report of the committee. And the governors are saying, no, we've already backed President Buhari. We have to conduct checks consequences. The elongation is now unconstitutional, and you already know that there's a rift coming, and this is a bad time for it to come. The PDP had worse crisis than this, but luckily they dealt with it early on. This is too close,
right, to the actual time.
To be doing this.
Thank you very much, Funmi. We'll very quickly take comments on WhatsApp, YouTube, and Twitter. Catch up with all these things. On YouTube, just type Smooth 98.1 FM Lagos.
I like this because on YouTube you can actually respond to each other, so you can see people talking. Yes.
Actually, electricity trading, the federal government, please keep your home in order first.
And then righteous.
He continues and said they were only righteously polluting the air. And we keep that going. Misinformation. Olatunde says misinformation has always been around, fake news and the likes. All consumers of news must be really careful, especially media houses, I would add. This next one here, this one is from Solomon. It says the way people dispose their personal waste in the country is shocking. Nigeria still has more pit latrines than water system in 2018. This can only result of fecal contamination. Hashtag Freshly Pressed 91.
Let me take this one from Sykes. The governor should also look into Shango Tedo and Lakowe Lekki, because I don't understand what these cleaner Lagos people are doing. They don't seem to keep the time. Even Abuja is not left out. Since they came to power, things have gone out of hand. Former waste people are better than them. This is not cleaner Lagos. Please, real quick, go on our Twitter handle. There's a picture I posted there from the World Health Organization on how poorly kept environments can lead to cholera outbreaks. So go on Twitter and then compare that with some side-by-side pictures of refuse that I saw driving by a couple days ago.
And very quickly before we go, NK sends this one. It would be very bad if we omit that. She says, when I was raped in 2004, I was wearing long jean skirts to my toes with short-sleeved shirts.
That's a brave message.
Judge victims by what they wear.
Thank you.
Take security lightly in Nigeria.
NK, thank you so much for sending that
and
message.
That's the much we can take here on Freshly Pressed 91. Catch up on YouTube. Just type in Smooth 91 FM Lagos. Good morning, brothers.
I think it's so annoying. It drives me nuts. A lot of people have psycho problems, right? In the comment as well. There's a lot of psycho. I can just sit there and type. You have psycho problems.
Because as far as you can type it, you've thought about it now. That is the mentality you have. That's what you believe in.
That's a very good analogy. Then rape will be happening every day.
Exactly. If you go to exactly.
Go and rape them.
Yeah, exactly.
You go to the gym, you see people wear wear suits or up and
that
down.
Thing,
very silly.
Gang, that's how it happens. So a lot of the guys who do this thing think it's
and
cool.
Because the security agencies feel,
they think it's cool to do
like
it.
They don't see it as
let's mind our
terribly.
business.
Exactly, they don't see it as terribly as murder.
The governor was right there, sitting in the
They are
stadium.
serial rapists, right?
Yeah.
Just the same way you have serial killers. You have people like that who, in their mind, rape people. It's actually a disease. Now there's also the social side of rape, where you have gangs who just think it's cool.
Right, so do.
So to them, they look forward to things like that.
Because that was a classic case of gang rape.
Yes, now
they
just
said
go.
some girls were pulled from their boyfriends.
Yes, now.
And they threatened their boyfriends,
that's
like,
what
if
they
you
do.
move, we'll do something, like, we'll
So serial rapists don't move. If you see a serial rapist won't follow guys like that, because serial rapists do it on their own. They have their own joy doing their own thing. Do you understand? And it's very premedicated. There's the way they do it. But these guys, they are just
like that's
gang. That's the fun. They sit down, they drink together, they go out. Yes, now that's what they go to concerts. They plan for it. So you have to address those guys. Once you catch some of